got a little bit of education in this stuff. I got my master's degree at the University of Michigan last year in contemporary improvisation. So what that means is a mixture of like jazz and classical music, basically. Okay. So we're going to talk today about this whole thing. So the guitar, in my opinion, you know, its most underutilized facet of it is the idea that the guitar is a polyphonic instrument, right? Which means it can play more than one pitch at a time. Now, most people tend to, as a guitarist, from what I've kind of gathered from teaching and stuff for a few years, we tend to think about things in terms of single note lines or chords. You have these blocks, and these are your chords, and you have these lines or these scales and stuff, and these are the single note things, right? But like, how often do we think about these things as two note voices or two note things? So this kind of is going to come a lot from the piano and some of that background, but basically my thinking is the guitar is underutilized in this way, so I started kind of getting involved and trying to figure out, okay, so I have this like really crappy orchestra. I've got like 6 strings, right? I can only play 6 voices. At best scenario, right? I can play a 6-note voicing, but then 6 strings. So well, you know, what's a good 6-note voicing? There's not many of them, you know, well maybe. So like, you know, you have like this big lush voicing, right? 6 notes happening. Can anybody hear all 6 of those notes right off the top of their head and like identify them and hear them? Anybody have perfect pitch in here? No? Okay.
I can see what you're.
You can sing, right?
I can see
you
like
can
you
start.
have an A there, maybe. What is it? 7th in there? No.
There's a 7th. There's an A on top.
There's an
okay?
A on top.
Well, you'd have to do all the extensions, 7, 9, and 11 in there.
There's not an 11 in there, but there's a 6. There's a 9. Okay, so there's a lot of extensions in there. So the idea here now, right, is holy crap, that's a lot of information for my ear, right? Like, so my theory with the guitar as a student and as a practitioner is, you got to start with being able to play one note well. One note, you know, like being able to create the sound of one note, really get it. Okay, so I can play one note well, right? Okay, what's the next thought? You know, it's like, can I play 2 notes well, right? And so what this gets to now, the idea is, so I can play this big voicing, and the reality is this is preconceived, because we're talking about improvisation too, right? That's a part of this, okay? So this is preconceived, this is a shape that I know. I can't really hear all 6 of these voices either. I'm just gonna mess with you guys sometimes too, you know? I can't really I could sit down with a recording and pick out the highest note, right? How would you go about picking out a voicing like that? Just real quick, you know, you would pick out the highest note, find the bass note, you have your shell, right? You have your highest pitch and your lowest pitch, and then from there you can start trying to really pick apart one of these each of these voicings. But it's very difficult because there's 6 of them. But now if you start practicing 2 notes, what you're going to start realizing is you're going to start training your ear to be able to hear 2 things happening simultaneously. Now that doesn't mean you're always going to be using that technique, but it can inform like an improvisation. Like, I'm not going to play counterpoint in a traditional sense yet, but I'm going to improvise using that as an idea, you know? So. Okay, it's a C major scale. But what am I doing, you know, is I have this thing, and then there's like an answer, right? It's in a different register, okay? So now that could easily be, okay? That's where this, you know, this idea is basically derived off of, and this is where we're going to kind of start getting into the idea of this. So first step, I have these references up here too. I don't know if you guys can really see these. These are just things like if you have a phone, take a picture of them. I know you're going to get a video of this too. Check this stuff out. This is where a lot of this information is kind of derived from or sourced from, and I just like to let people know that because these are really good resources for guitarists. So the Mick Goodrick book is the first one, The Advancing Guitarist, okay? So where this all starts is you have to be able to identify the pitches on your guitar up and down the single string, okay? So starting with E, high E, right? We all know this. This is E, okay? F, G, A, B, C, D, E. Going up and down the single string, right? Everybody kind of hip to this, or just like completely foreign to you? If it's foreign at any time, just like, yo dude, you lost me. We'll work right back. So he calls it the science of the unitar. You know, you go back and you think about like what were like primitive human being, what were their first instruments, you know, like they probably like stretched some piece of bamboo and like some like skin of some animal and made like this monochord, right? So we think about just a single thing, you know, and you learn these pitches, like you work on your scales. So I also have here harmonic materials. You know, you can go all through the spectrum. I imagine most of you are probably in the tonal area, which is fine. It's a great place to be. You know, you can get into bitonality. We'll talk about that a little bit, and then completely atonal music, which, you know, I don't know how much of that we'll get into today, but maybe. Okay, so tonal materials. Okay, so major scale. You know, it's a classic. There's a reason why, because, you know, no matter if you're a jazz guitarist, a rock guitarist, a country guitarist, it's a trans-stylistic idea. It transcends a genre, right? The major scale from Bach, and Bach listed down there. Everybody uses this material, right? So it's a good idea as a guitarist to not just know it as like some abstract scale shape on your instrument, you know? So what I did, and what I used to do, and so just to kind of give you an idea on how you practice this stuff too, I used to just take a scale every day. So let's just say C major, you know, today is C major day, right? And so what I would do is I would just go through each one of the strings, play the C major scale up and down the string, you know? No, we're not gonna get into legato and left hand technique, and you know, there's all these other things that you can get into with just a single string. We don't have time to get into all that. But the idea is first you get this, and do it through every string, you know? Like learn where the notes are. Like don't guess, you know? It doesn't have to be that way. There's only 12 of them, you know? And it's a grid. I mean, that's kind of a given, right? You have north, south, east, and west. It's a flat, it's basically a plane, right? So learning how to move that way, it does two things. It gets you out of boxes, it gets you out of patterns, and it allows you to start seeing your instrument full range, okay? And what this does is it opens up our first possibility for counterpoint. And when we talk about counterpoint, people think, oh man, I gotta have a college degree in this. I gotta study all the rules that the white people made. No, that's not what it's really about. It's about two notes happening simultaneously, right? It's like, you don't need to study all these. There's a million rules. I went to school for this stuff, I'm telling you. There's a million, it'll drive you nuts with the amount of rules they have for how you make a counterpoint in Western art music. You know, so I'm not really into that. My idea is more like, let's figure out how it works on the guitar and let's utilize that for what we want to do, right? So I would go through and learn all these things, but then when I started thinking about it, it's like, whoa, the C major scale, right? All the open strings work in the key of C major, right? They're all natural notes, E, A, D, G, B, E. So each one of these open strings now has a relationship to the C major scale, right? Are you with me on this so far?
Sure.
So if I play an E, a low E, right?
That's the third.
That's the third degree of the scale, right? So if I play a C major, so this is another thing too, the trapping of modality. You don't need to think about 35, 40 modes. It's just to think about the parent scale. The C major scale yields 7 sounds, right? Depending on which pitch is in the bass. That's basically what it comes down to, because the human ear, right? We talked about the human ear at the beginning. You are always going to hear everything that happens in reference to what the lowest pitch is. So no matter what I play, if I play C major triad on top of that, it sounds dark. And it sounds dark because the third degree is the Phrygian sound, right? It's like a very dark sound. So now if I play C major scale against that E, it doesn't sound like a C major scale anymore, right? Because that E is down. But it's counterpoint, right? I have now this gets us into our first counterpoint. Oblique. What does oblique mean? It means you have two voices, right? One of the voices is not moving. In a drone situation, we're kind of using the guitar right there kind of as a drone right now, right? And then we're singing on top of it, like kind of like Indian music. You know, you can get into all that expressive stuff on the single string too, but no, so that's oblique motion. One of the voices is not moving. Okay, and this is a great place to get into to start your exploration into counterpoint, learning how the open strings work against the scales, because what we don't have, the piano has 2 hands, you have 5 fingers in each hand. There's all this independence, right? We don't have that on the guitar. We have one hand that's stuck doing one thing and one hand that's stuck doing the other thing. So we have to start learning how the guitar really works in all these different keys with the open strings, because what that'll allow us to do is it'll allow us to get into some territory that maybe you can't typically get into in certain keys, you know? So like I'm studying the music of Thelonious Monk right now, and there's voicings like, yeah, like try to hear some of these. They're crunchy, man, you know, and I had to sit down for like a long time and like I learn them from the piano and then figure out how the heck do you put this on the guitar now? And you start, oh, this open string actually works here, you know? So learning the open string. So that was a little bit of a digression, but you go to the A string then. Now the A string, it's the 6th degree of the C major scale, right? So if I play C major on top of this, it's going to sound like the A minor scale, right? But it's still C major. Right? I got that vibe. So D scale, D string is going to be the Dorian sound on it, right? It's the 2. G, it's going to brighten up now because it's like kind of sounding like Mixolydian. Hybrid technique here, you can explore. I'm not really a big proponent in telling anybody what to do with their right hand. There's a million different ways to do it. I think George Benson is pretty good. He'd be somebody to check out, for pick and stuff. But in terms of like how you navigate a lot of this material, I implore you to check out your fingers, hybrid technique, pick. There's all sorts of advantages and disadvantages to using different, techniques and different timbres too, right? Like the difference between plucking it with a pick up here versus. Cheating a little bit. I'm using some colors. My ears kind of do that to me. I'm sorry. Okay, so anyways, the open strings, okay, they work in certain capacities right now. So what you do is you can explore now. Okay, I was doing that all with the oblique motion with the bass note not moving at all, right? I could easily do that the opposite, right? Oblique works both ways. I could have a pitch on top that isn't moving, and you hear this a lot in. I referenced on there J.S. Bach's Solo Partitas and Sonatas for Violin. Okay, that's a book that I've been practicing out of for probably 10 years at this point. I'm still terrible at it. It makes no sense to me. But he uses a lot of that. So what that is doing now, and you probably heard this, there's like the C is being repeated. Okay, this is really not that complicated. What's going on is I have C up top, okay, 8th fret of the high E string. And I just have a simple melody of the C major scale starting on the note G on the B string. G, F, E, D, C. It's just a major scale. So, fa, mi, re, do. And then what you can do is you put those together. Okay,
so this is, I'm sorry to interrupt, is this still in the oblique?
Yep, this is still oblique because that top pitch isn't moving, right? So one thing you can do too, it's kind of fun, is try to sing one of the parts while you're doing it. So, because at first what happens is the ear gets pulled into hearing only one of the parts. All right, so there's kind of levels to this. There's a technical aspect to it, like you got to be able to execute this stuff, and some of it is not easy with the hands. You have to figure that out. But the other thing is actually being able to hear the two things happening at once, right? So I don't have his name up there, but this guy Gilad Hexelman, he's a crushing New York guitarist. He's so killer. But he used to have me do a lot of that stuff where you would sing one of the voices, okay? So what it does is it kind of gets you the independence in your ear. So, so all you're trying to do is like you isolate each one of the voices. And then the other thing too with this that I want to talk about real quick, and this goes for all of the, for anything you're practicing like this, is listen to the quality of the sound of each voice. The tendency is when you have two voices going on the guitar, one is typically sounding a little bit louder than the other. And especially if you have a hybrid technique, right now you have this immense challenge in trying to get evenness of sound because you're using two different surfaces on the string. Okay, so that's something to think about, like how do you really get this? How do you really get them to be balanced, like where it's like if you have two people singing together, you don't want to be singing with somebody and somebody's a little bit louder than you all the time, right? It's kind of start annoying you after a while. You think, come on, man, like blend, like if you're in a horn section or something, it's all about blending. So that's another thing that's just worth working on, That was better. I still think that I could do better, like it's still something I'm working on too. So oblique motion just means one of the voices isn't, so you can, and now how do you break that into a single note idea? So if it's a two note idea, it's also a single note idea. Now that's kind of like a little bit of a head wrap maybe, but this is the basic, like the Genesis, the basic idea, right? Just going down the C major scale. But, we're human beings, we like variation, I don't have to play it that way. I could play backwards. Right? Now instead of going from the fifth down to the root, I went to the root up to the fifth. You know, you have all these little things you might know, like thirds, little patterns, right? So, right? Okay, and all these things, now these are just ideas, right? Now I could break that apart into single notes. And now getting into more oblique motion, it's like, well, maybe, you know, counterpoint starts with two voices, but, you know, one of the easiest things we can do on the guitar is on an open string ring, right? You strike it and it takes care of itself. It's like one of the best relationships you could have, you know? You barely have to maintain it, you know, just done. Okay, so I might sit just in a practice session with one idea like this for an hour, you know, and just sit there and try to really hear, you know, what are the possibilities here? And it's like, wow, there's kind of a mood here, right? It's like, with the A string, it's kind of dark. Okay, so, you know, and also as a composer, you know, everybody should just leave this room today thinking of themselves as a composer too. Okay, that's important. Come up with stuff. Sit down and come up with stuff that's unique to you. Don't think that, once again, all this stuff, all these kind of prejudices and kind of all these like misconceptions, I gotta have a degree to know about counterpoint. I'm not a composer because I didn't go to school for it. If you've ever created a single riff on the guitar in your life, you're a composer. So welcome to the club. And you know, what these things, like, it's not necessarily, you know, like, everybody has their own goals with this, you know, like not everybody is trying to become some virtuosic wizard on the instrument, you know. It's like, so how does this apply to you? It applies to you because these are compositional tools where you could sit down like this, like already to me, I might use this for a composition. I'm just sitting here doing a class with you guys and I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And it's just all coming out of this one idea, right? This little oblique idea we had, and I'm using the open string down there. So, now that was kind of, you know, rhythm was not really a part of that yet, right? We could say that was kind of free, it was kind of floaty, right? I was just kind of exploring this sound. Now, you could also, you know, get involved with putting rhythm to this stuff now, right? And that's gonna kind of get us into this next part here, and then we're gonna kind of go through some more stuff. But now, to this little flow chart, it's kind of fluid, but now you have your counterpoint. We're dealing with oblique right now. The harmonic materials, C major scale, right? That's what we talked about. And now we're going to go over to rhythm. Okay, off grid. There's basically two forms of rhythm. There's grid and there's off grid. The car motor you just heard is off grid. You know, I mean, I guess like in a grand cosmic sense, maybe it's on the grid. You know, like in a time beyond what we can comprehend grid. You know, but in terms of like a musical grid, there's not really one out there. It's just life, right? So birds, they're not like keeping any beat, right? And they're in their own time all the time, right? Any animals, any sounds, wind rustling through the trees, right? There's a rhythm happening there. An industrial garage, you know, car mechanics. I love going to the car mechanic, man. There's a lot of rhythm happening there if you ever check it out. It's crazy. You know, see, and there's like all these rhythms happening. And so, you know, that's like off grid. I just want to say this because it's like kind of hippie, I guess, but it's kind of it's true, is in your day-to-day life, you should be aware of the rhythms around you. And as a composer, once again, feel free to use those, you know. I used to work at this, like a grocery store, and they had a meat slicer that had a killing 9/8 groove, man. It was crazy. And I would, yeah, it was I was like, man, this is killing. Like 4, 2, yeah. I was like trying to figure it out, you know. And it's just like then I'm like stocking dressing, and I'm like, this is killing. And I'm like thinking of some chords, maybe a bass line on top of that. Okay, so it's crazy, right? But at the same time, rhythm is happening constantly. Like right now, I'm talking, right? The dot dot the dot dot. It's all rhythm. And so, you know, that gets into, you know, looking at poetry in terms of rhythm, speech patterns, all these things that happen in our day-to-day life. Like, it's all stuff that's worth checking out, because I think as improvisers now, one of our biggest issues is it's like, when it's time to start improvising, it's like, oh crap, anything is possible? It's almost like you choke up, like you don't know what to say. It's like, I can say anything, you know? So the easiest thing to start doing is having a conversation. You know, like if I'm just improvising, you know, this is once again a little bit of a digression, but you'll learn this about me, that happens, you know. How are you? Right? You could also, you know, get more analytical and say it's a grouping of 3. 1, 2, 3. Right? But, okay, now I'm getting some counterpoint, but a response to the question, right? How are you? I'm good. Okay. It's just vocal stuff, you know. And you can get into, like, there's a poem by Charles Bukowski I really like for this. It's just called Art, and it says, "As the spirit wanes, the form appears. Da da do do da, ba bu ba." It's like a totally balanced rhythm. It's a very short poem, but it's the balance in it, you know. So that's just kind of, these are some things like rhythmically to think about. Now that's all off-grid stuff, so that's like, you know, when you're hanging out at the house or whatever and you want to get weird on a Friday night or something. I mean, that's my life every day, but I get it that most of you people are not as insane as I am. Okay, grid. Time signature playing. Okay, like, if you want to play with people, you know, not unless you're in a free improvised community, most likely you're going to be playing in the grid. Now the grid might not be constant, okay? You have a drummer with bad time, you got somebody drumming beats, you got somebody adding beats, okay? The grid might not out you. Best case scenario, the grid is constant, okay? Good drummers, good bassists are going to do this for you, but as a guitarist, you're also a percussion instrument, right? The guitar is a percussion instrument. So you are as responsible for the rhythmic fluidity in those grids as the bassist and the drummer are. Okay, so now how do you practice this stuff? Kind of putting it all together now. So there's time signatures. Most of you guys, like, what kind of music do you guys all play? Like, just throw some stuff out there. Like, what kind of music? Blues music, okay.
Klezmer.
Klezmer music, okay.
Bluegrass.
Bluegrass?
Eastern European music and jazz.
Okay, so Eastern European music specifically, you start talking about the Balkan area and stuff.
Yeah,
You have some
not
odd time
mainly Balkan.
You have odd
Serbian,
time signatures.
Romanian.
Okay, Slovenian and all that stuff. Okay, we're gonna talk more about that in a second. But okay,
Hungary.
most of us are in the 4/4 time signature. Okay, and that's not a bad place to be. It's a good place to be. Okay, so now there's some basic things that I think even before you get on your instrument you should be able to do. Okay, so I'm just gonna put this down real quick and we're just gonna talk about a couple things. So 4/4 time, 4 quarter notes in a bar, right? It's very simple. All right, so. You can just, you know, you can follow along with me. You can just listen. It doesn't matter. I'm just tapping my feet to quarter notes. 1, 2. 1. 1, 2. 3. 4. So I'm moving the quarter note, right? I'm clapping the quarter note. So the first thing you got to be able to do is you have to be able to keep a solid pulse with your feet and hit those quarter notes. Simple, right? Can everybody do that? Everyone feel pretty comfortable doing that? Let's just try it. So we're gonna just every time, here's the little exercise. We're gonna try it. You're just gonna change the quarter note every bar, okay? So we're gonna start with the first quarter note, and then we're gonna move to the second. So every bar it'll move, right? So I'll count 1 bar ahead before we begin. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's something to practice. If that was hard for you, practice it. You have to be able to feel that, right? These are the four pillars of 4/4 time. Okay, these are the quarter notes. Now there's levels to it, right? So what comes after the quarter note for subdivisions? 8th note, right? So the next thing to do would be, once again, get the feet going. Now in your head, you know, you could be thinking of, like, you know, Indian syllables, and in conical they call it taka. So taka, 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 taka. Whatever you want to think about taco, you know, that's maybe more American. So taka, taka. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to clap 8th notes against the feet, okay? 2, 3, 4. Okay, keep your feet going now. And now that's what we're going to do is we're just going to clap the half beats. So all the ands, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and okay, so you work on that. You get that comfortable, okay? So where you can feel, because these are all spots where you can phrase, right? These are all spots where you could start a musical idea, right? And if you know where they really are, you know, you get past this idea of like counting and like calculating and just get into how it feels. These are all spots where you can start a musical phrase. It goes deeper. You can get into the triplet, you know, which the triplet now is, you know, we're talking about blues music. If you can't feel the triplet, I'm telling you right now, if you can't feel the triplet, you can't play black music. You just can't do it. You can't do it. It's impossible. Yeah, I've heard people do it, and when they're not feeling the triplet, it doesn't sound right. It doesn't, you know. So the triplet, you know, and now especially at a slow tempo, you're playing a slow blues or something. That triplet is what's going to help you to be able to feel that really slow tempo, right? It's
Maybe like 12/8.
yeah, so maybe like a 12/8 thing, right? Because basically what we have, right, in a bar of 4/4, you have 12 triplets, right? That's the big kind of expansion of that, okay? So now this kind of gets us into the first idea. So when you're a baby, the first thing you hear in the womb is the heartbeat. From your, you know, everybody here had a mother that carried them into this world, I'm assuming. So that's the most primal rhythm there is in human beings. We're all wired to hear that sound. Okay, that's the first rhythm you hear, and it's constant, right? I mean, we hope mom's heart is constant. So now when we get to the triplet, we can start using this heartbeat as kind of a reference to start feeling the parts of the triplet, all right? And this is kind of where this rhythm section is going to kind of look at here for now. So everyone get your feet going again. So we have 3 events happening on each thing, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do this heartbeat thing where we're going to clap the first 2 triplets, okay? So the last 2 triplets. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. Once again, these things are hard. You know, we'll have the video and everything. You just go back. These are things that you know when you're sitting. You got a 5-minute break from work or something. You know, I mean. I can't tell you how many like little odd jobs I've had over my life that I've got away with practicing rhythm at, you know, just like you can sit there and kind of be quiet, you know, waiting for your car to get done, you know. Okay, and now there's one more, which is feeling the first triplet and the third triplet. Now you're gonna hear, I'm gonna clap it and demonstrate it first, but you're gonna recognize this rhythm right away. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, just shuffle. 1, 2, blue shuffle. Okay, so why am I doing all this stuff clapping? Okay, first thing, rhythm is a manifestation, which means if you cannot feel it in your body, you cannot produce it out to others. Okay, that's very simple, right? That's like, and everyone's probably had this at different times. You got a little squirrely on playing something, you're like, oh, okay, what's happening there? Maybe it's a breakdown of technique or something, but a lot of times it's because rhythmically we're just kind of guessing, you know. And I was in this nebulous world for a long time too. Like, so part of getting to know the grid is getting control over the grid, right? And getting control over it just means just kind of learning where these access points are in terms of the 8th note and the triplet, okay? And that's the beginning. I mean, this goes, you know, this goes out to outer space. You can get the subdivisions of 21 notes, you can get into the Zappa stuff, you know, you can get into some really wild stuff with just these subdivision ideas. But now how does that work on the guitar? Okay, so all the way going back, you know, we have this counterpoint idea, right? 2 pitches. happening simultaneously. So one thing that you can work on to just do this, you know, is just like take two pitches. So like, is everybody familiar with like intervals a little bit to varying degrees? Okay, so we're gonna just take this little interval, okay? E to G, which is a minor third interval, okay? We have these two notes, right? So now what we can start thinking about is, okay, the grid, I wanna play in 4/4. Okay, so maybe one of these pitches is gonna play quarter notes. Okay, so, all right. Now maybe we'll have the top voice play 8 notes. All right. Everybody hear that? It could be backwards, right? It could be. Triplet thing too, right? It could be. Okay, these are things that you can just practice, like being able to switch and get fluidity with, okay? Once again, the levels to this, we're thinking, okay, we're still in the tonal world, okay, we're still in C major. Gosh, this is kind of boring after a while, hey? It's just stuck on these two notes. So what I can do is I can start thinking about, okay, well, what are my other choices here? I have 3 other types of counterpoint. Similar, parallel, and contrary. So the next one we're going to talk about is contrary. We're going to work our way up. Contrary, what do you think it means? It means, right, two voices moving in opposite directions. Okay? It's one of the most pleasing things that the human ear hears. It gives the human ear so much joy to hear two lines moving in opposite directions and then coming back together. So I'll just improvise something so you can kind of hear what this sounds like. Okay, what the heck did I just do there now? It got a little complicated, but it's still C major. Okay, so I have right here, this is like my starting point, okay? In Western music, sometimes they call this the axis, okay? It's like where the idea begins, okay? Now, up on this, I know up my C major scale, if I continue up my C major scale, G, A, B, right? That's a little melody right there. Because counterpoint is basically two melodies happening at the same time. I guess that's another way to think about it, okay? So, and then my other melody from here is ya, ya, do. Now hear those two together.
So don't think of them, are you saying don't think of them as inversions? Think of them as counter, is that what I'm understanding?
Don't think about these as inversions. Think about them as melodic voices, okay? So one of the issues I was talking about at the beginning is guitar players tend to think of things in either single notes or chords.
Sure.
Harmony does not work like that. Harmony is a fluid thing. A really great composer like Stravinsky or somebody, it's not like, I'm just gonna stick this chord right here in this orchestra, you know? It's like each one of those voices came from somewhere and is going somewhere, you know? So basically so you wanna start thinking about this like two melodies, right? I mean, you could think about it intervallically. You could say, you know, minor third to a perfect fifth to a major 7, okay?
Okay.
That wouldn't be how I would think about it because it's too convoluted.
Right.
It's just two melodies.
So it's just, yeah.
When one melody is descending, right? That melody from E is descending.
Okay.
And the melody on the top is ascending, right? So it's contrary. It's going no, no, no. So they're moving apart from each other.
Oh.
They're expanding.
They're expanding. Okay,
Got it.
great. Now that's a key word. Okay, I didn't put that up there, but that's a good one. Expanding and contracting. Right? That's what contrary motion really is doing. Now you can get into these really elaborate exercises. That's not where you start though. You start with just these tiny little, because you know, if you're soloing in the key of C major or something, that can be like a breath of fresh air. If you've been playing a lot of single notes, you know, or something to do too is just think about this theme. You know, sometimes I'll take an idea like, stuff from that one idea again now, and I'm just kind of expanding and exploring the little nooks and crannies of what's available within this little area. Okay,
In that area of the scale?
in that area of the scale.
Okay,
yep.
so you're thinking scale.
I'm still tonal. Yep, we're still
tonal,
We're
got
still
it.
in a tonal approach.
Sorry, I'm trying to follow.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like I said, we're going to try to cover a lot of ground here in an hour.
Okay.
So yeah, it's still C major. So all I'm doing is from the E, I'm descending the C major scale. Yay! So dee-da-do, right? Three blind mice. Da-da-dee, that's the other melody, and they're just happening. And then I can contract the idea, right? I can go. Okay. So once again, just trying to isolate right now for some of you, if you're having a hard time hearing, try to just listen to one of the voices, and just see if you can really hear that one through, So if I just kind of. See, I screwed up there. Did anybody hear the bottom voice dropped out for a second, okay? Now this is like an exercise in 4/4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, because the bass in 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
Is it safe to say you're expanding, contracting each?
Yeah, so-
Each
Interval.
beat interval. Yeah.
Yeah. So each beat.
So what would you hear as I'm expanding, I'm contracting?
Yeah. That's
Okay.
basically, and so what I'll do sometimes is there's two things happening. Sometimes I'm conscious, sometimes I'm focusing more on one of the voices because I really want it to come out.
Right.
Or the reality is there's a threshold to this, and just like how much you can hear and how much you can execute at one given time too. But that's why I recommend just starting with these really simple, these really simple things. Because contrary motion is probably one of the hardest things to really get going on the guitar, I think. Like, if I really start getting after it for you guys, let's see what I can come up with. I'll stay in C major.
Sounds like Bartok,
Right.
like the Microcosmos. Yeah, it had a lot of those type of actions.
Yeah.
Yep, so. But that was bitonal, that's Bartok. That's D and C happening at the same time. So a lot of these now are, basically what they are is, it's like I said, it's two melodies occurring, okay? So contrary motion, that can be a way to kind of, so one exercise that I'll say that is really good for practicing contrary motion now, and this will get us into kind of the rest of the intervals too, is, starting from some interval that on the guitar. So like, let's just go through this real quick. So in a C major scale on the top two strings of the guitar. Now this has to be worked through all the strings, I'm just demonstrating the top, but you should practice all 6 strings. I'm just gonna play thirds. Is everybody hip to this? This is like total rocket science. Okay, so what is the third? In the key of C major, right? We have C to E. We're just skipping a note of the scale, right? If you look at the white keys on the piano, it's just skipping keys basically, right? So C, that's a major third, by the way, right? All right. Now what's the next one?
It's going to be a D
and a-
the root, and then
So D.
Yep, so it's a minor third, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so these are 2 different intervals, but now we're thinking tonally. We're still in the key of C major, right? So when you play through your thirds of the key of C major, which I recommend you do. Okay, when you play through that, you are playing similar counterpoint. They're not parallel because the voices are moving, right? They're adjusting to fit the scale. Does that make sense?
Repeat that one last time.
Okay, so it's
they're
similar. If you play through any sort of tonal scalar material that's not symmetrical, so you take away the whole tone, take away the diminished, because there's symmetrical properties to those scales. But like the major scale, for instance, if you
Sure.
play through any interval combination, so the thirds, the fourths, the fifths, the sixths, the sevenths of the major scale, you are playing similar motion because, like, this is a major third, and then it's 2 minor thirds, right?
Right.
Then 2 major thirds again.
Right.
Then 2 minor thirds again, back to the major third. Okay, so once again, in Mick Goodrick's book, he talks about all this stuff too. But so basically the thirds, okay? So you have similar motion. So parallel motion is different. Parallel motion means, and this is one of the easiest things to do on the guitar. It's a pain in the butt on the piano, but it's really nice. And in fact, I heard whoever was playing out there was using quite a bit of this. The whole tone scale. It's so easy on the guitar because what we're doing is just thirds, right? Notice that the shape is never changing, right? It's parallel motion. The shape is never changing, so
Those are major thirds.
those are major thirds moving in whole steps.
Okay.
So, because that's the whole tone scale. So okay, so that's parallel. So anything you have, you could have a chord. You know, these little things are like it's just the same sound. Like you hear tons of modern jazz is doing this. It's almost kind of annoying. It's one sound, man. It's just a parallel motion. No, it's a chord.
Tone scale, got it.
Yeah, but so now this is just, and you can do that on other strings too. Like these two strings are tuned to a major third. I mean, that's about as easy as it gets, right? You just flatten the finger. Okay, so that's parallel. Okay, now go back to contrary. How do I practice contrary motion? Okay, so I hate to say it, probably the guys saying this, well maybe the classical guys said it too, but learn to read music. You know, get good at reading music because there's a lot of information in that stuff, man. You know, especially like the microcosmos. So what the microcosmos are, they're easy piano books, okay? Bill Bartok wrote these for his son Peter to learn how to play piano. So they're categorized from volume 1 as like very easy piano stuff. But you know, what you do is you just sit down and learn the voices one at a time like a pianist does, you know? Learn how to read bass clef, learn how to do all these things because these are things that are learnable, one, and you don't want to have something like reading as an impediment to like what you want to learn or like what you want to do, you know, like it's a bizarre thing to me that people are like so against it. So learn to read, you know, microcosmos, a lot of this stuff is coming from that.
And you said there's 3 books? Or
There's
like
6 of them.
Six.
Now,
6.
on the guitar, I think you can probably get to book 3 before you're going to have to tap out.
Yeah, because
It gets-
the range is not.
And it gets pretty dense, like in terms of rhythmically, the independence and stuff. So the idea is you practice really easy piano pieces on guitar. Okay, that's one thing I recommend. But now to get back in this idea of counterpoint, you know, and contrary motion specifically. Now you could, you know, I study quite a bit of Bach. I'm not classically trained, but I can play a lot of that music with my own adaptive technique, I guess we'll call it, for lack of a better term, because I don't play classical style with the fingers. I can't take care of my nails that well, man. Like those guys really, it's a commitment. It's a commitment,
It's a
man,
commitment.
for
I
real.
can't.
As a guy who likes to like, you know, hit stuff and everything, like it's just not gonna work for me. So, yeah, so anyways, you know, all that to say contrary motion, how do we practice it? So one thing that I think is really valuable on the guitar, and hopefully this will be, you know, something really tangible to leave you with, is we have these thirds, right? And hopefully one thing you've learned is, like, you know, through all this is that all these thought processes have expansive levels to them. You know, they go to the moon and back. You know, each one of these little individual things could be talked about for hours. But now with the thirds, contrary motion. So at its core, what do we need to have happen? We need to have one voice. We need to have the voices move in opposite directions of each other. That's basically it, right? So either the top voice can raise or it can drop, and the bottom voice can do the opposite of that, right? It's kind of like, I tend to think about it sometimes as like a mechanism. You know, I don't know, this is kind of weird, but you know, like when I was a kid, I used to have these rector sets and stuff, you know, and you build all these things and like get the ball to like, you know, go from like the corner of the room over to the other corner using all these like traps and levers and stuff to get everything going, right? So counterpoint to me is kind of like that, but if I have like the third here, the easiest way for me to get something going like that is just to think about, and this goes back to why do I need to know my single string scales on all the single strings, you know, it's because when you start wanting to do some counterpoint, you need to really have fluidity on both those strings. Where's the next note going to be, you know? So like for this case, E could go down to D, and G goes up to A, right? So the easiest thing you could do is just go, right? That's a very simple. Now what you could do is you could take every third of your scale and do that, okay? So C to E goes to B to F, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
now
you expanded it.
Yep.
Yeah.
what you have happening there is you're using the thirds, your similar motion, as a starting point, and then you're dropping one of the voices and raising one of the voices using the C major scale.
That's cool.
And it's very simple, right? You notice the hand, I'm not doing some big crazy stretch here, right? It's just, it's a 2-finger exercise.
So if you start on C, so you're doing the C and an E.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And then the next, then you're gonna be dropping that to a B.
And raising the top.
And raise the top 2.5.
Yep.
And then you're gonna be going down from the B to an A, and then go to a G.
Well, so what I'm doing here is, no, sorry. What's happening here now is there's actually 3 different types of counterpoint happening here, but I'm trying not to get into that.
Okay.
Because the F is staying there, right? Because now I'm gonna go up to the next third. I view these as pairs, all related to that third.
Okay.
So like, and now the next one is D and F,
D and F.
which is gonna go down to the D and the C now, right? So like basically what's happening is the melodies are going. Like, I'll play that exercise real quick, see if you can just hear this. Okay? Voice doing that melody?
Yeah.
Okay, so these are things like, this will all be on the video and everything, you can check all this out, but these are things that have to be done extremely slow at first, because, to really, like I said, to get your ear to hear that stuff, okay? Now, this is just kind of thinking in terms of 2 notes, so like now to get back to rhythm, like, there's other things I could do, like if I just wanted to practice like similar motion, and like maybe just like a little bit of movement like so.
So a simple motion where it's the same interval, but you're moving the same amount of frets. So you're doing like a major third and moving that up whole steps, like you're doing little.
That's parallel.
That was parallel.
Yep.
All right. So
similar is the intervals are changing, right?
Okay.
So they're similar because they're all thirds,
Okay,
right?
that's right. So
But
that's
they're
why
not all major.
Major
because
third,
we're
minor third, major third.
right.
major third,
Yep.
minor
Because
third.
we're in the
Right.
tonal world.
Okay.
Right. So now another thing you could think about is maybe moving 2 voices is like a little bit like, whoa, I don't know, that's a bit much to start off with. Well, you could just move 1, right? And this gets us into the trans-stylistic kind of area of Jimi Hendrix to Bill Frisell to everybody's heard this stuff. Right? All these little things, these little Hendrix fills and the Isley Brothers and all this stuff. This is it's counterpoint, right? But so what's happening here really? So we have thirds. Once again, our Genesis idea here. Now what we could do is just think about, I want to take every one of these thirds and just raise the top pitch. So I got, right? And that third becomes a 4th now, right? So a way you could categorize this in your mind is think 3rd to 4th, okay? Now what do you have going on rhythmically? You could say, okay, that bottom voice is a quarter note and the top voice is 2 8 notes, right? So I could go. Play it correctly, don't do what I just did. See what I did there?
Yeah.
I just took the thirds, right? And I'm just moving that top voice.
And is that similar?
It's similar, right?
Yes,
It's
right.
well, basically what I would call this is similar with motion. Right? This is kind of my own technique now, I guess, but it's the idea is that you have this genesis, this interval that started, right? And then you're using the notes around that interval from the scale to generate the movement, right? So in this case, all the melody is doing, like if I start up here, the melody up top is right? And the melody down here is just, it's just a major scale, so it's just, so you got. All right, now there's some challenges to this in terms of, notice I'm hammering on that note. I'm not picking it, Okay, so there's a challenge in getting both those notes to really ring and be accurate with the left hand. All right, and get sound production, because that top note, that top voice is the singing voice, right? So it's like if I hammer on and I don't really get that sound production, it's going to get lost. You know, so there's some sound. So now you could do the opposite. You could say, I got a third, but I want to take that top voice and drop it down. Now this is more of advanced. I'm not saying everybody's got to do this, but I could take the third and move it to a second. Right? There's a note down there I could use, right? So I'm taking the third now, but now I've changed the fingering of it because I'm trying to pull off to drop down to a second. So this is why it's good to be able to play these intervals with all different fingerings too, you know, because you might have some stuff like this where you want to, okay, so that's a little bit advanced, but so now thirds, you could also do the same act, you know, so I'll do something like this where I could also raise the bottom voice to get that second, right? Big stretch on the fender for sure. In the lower register at least. Everybody see, you know, I'm just taking that third. Once again, everything's coming from these thirds, and I'm raising the bottom voice. Okay, you could also drop, oh, you have a question?
No, I think I understand.
And then you could drop the bottom voice. Once again, you're having thirds moving to fourths, right? So you can be aware of how the intervals are moving, you know, like.
So you're still doing the same scale with the third, but then you're changing the top or the bottom voice to
Yeah.
at will or however.
Well, it's just right now we're just kind of predetermining it, like the melody is going to drop or it's going to rise, you know. You could expand it, you know, and get really crazy with it, but you know, that's just the general idea. And like I said, I would practice these things with the idea in your mind that one of the voices is quarter notes if you're doing movement, and one of the voices is eighth. Like think rhythm while you're doing this stuff, because you have to, you know, it's very rare that you're not going to be playing with some sort of rhythmic intention, you know. Right. So like if you're thinking triplets now, you would have to figure out I need 3 notes up top, right? And that gets a little bit challenging because I so it's like a 3-note melody.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all stuff. Now that's all thinking about that being vertical, or sorry, horizontal, kind of like this way. You know, like you're going up and down the guitar. Okay, so I just want to kind of look at this in one more way, just to kind of give you another kind of insight and perspective. Because there's one thing that we haven't talked about much, is like how the hell do you develop the technique to do this stuff? Right? I've showed you how to do all this stuff, but how do you really train your hands to be able to do this? Because it's a little bit challenging, okay? So first thing I'd recommend is now I'm talking about verticality here. So I'm talking about the C major scale. I'm just gonna pick 3 notes per string. That's what I like to do.
Okay.
I'm not saying you have to do it this way, but so I'm in C major and I'm gonna start on the note F. Just arbitrarily, because we're just trying to we're trying to get in a position on the guitar, okay? So F, G, A. This is the kind of the framework, the tonal framework I'm going to use for this, okay? Okay?
All right.
With me so far on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so
you're playing Lydian.
well, sure, if you want to think about it that way. I think about it's just C major starting from F, but it is Lydian.
Yeah, it is Lydian, but I'm trying to not think modes or intervals. This sounds more like a ear training exercise than anything else.
There is definitely ear involved, but so this
because I can hear the harmonies and where you kind of want the melodies to go, right? Am I understanding
yeah,
that? Like,
yeah. I mean, and that's the thing I was trying to say is like it's not about a bunch of rules. It's about listening. Like at the end of the day, a counterpoint is valid to you if you like the way it sounds.
Well, you could take it to, let's just say you could take a jazz song like Autumn Leaves, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In C major 7. Instead of thinking of C major 7, you think of the counterpoints that, I guess another way of saying is it true, just correct me if I'm wrong, this is my first time ever learning this, but are you just saying like you're trying to understand the colors that go well with that melody? So,
exactly.
Da 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 da. So instead of starting on tonic, you can start on, I don't know, you can go like a descending almost. In
Right, so
colors.
check this out. Let's do that because we're here. So Autumn Leaves, right? These are the melody. Right?
Right.
Okay, so now.
Yeah.
Right? I just went down the scale. starting
Yeah.
on the 4th.
So wait, you started on the 4th of C?
C, I saw the melody I put underneath is yeah, yeah, doo, doo.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Yeah, I hear it now.
So you're doing fourths there?
Well,
No,
I'm not
he's doing-
thinking. I'm not thinking about intervals. I'm thinking about those. I'm thinking about the melody to Autumn Leaves, and I'm just thinking about a melody of something underneath that is descending.
Okay.
Okay, because the melody is. So shape is a part of this too, right? One melody is going la da da da, la da da da, like these little la da da da. And it's
Right.
kind of descending, right? So. Thinking about a counter melody, that word counter melody. I mean, that's a great term to use. It's another melody that's happening with the melody.
Like, Robbie, have you ever heard of Julian Lodge?
Yeah.
He does that a lot.
Yeah, so Julian is like
he-
a master of this,
Yeah,
man.
he's extremely the master. Like, you take a song like he sang, like Autumn Leaves, you can hear the melody, but it's those counter points and movements that just make so much. Correct me if I'm wrong, Travis, but I'm just saying, like, he's adding the colors to it to expand
Exactly.
the melody.
It's all related
just-
to the
it's all
chords.
related,
Because
yeah.
now what this is no, what you're talking about is it's not just it's tonal, but that's even more specific. You're talking about a song now. You're talking about a harmonic progression. And now a
Yeah.
harmonic progression, right? There's a chordal progression involved in Autumn Leaves. We can all agree on that,
And a grid.
2/5, and there's a grid, right? So there's all these things. Okay, so now that kind of informs my note choices a little bit, So what we talked about at the beginning was more of kind of like a broad kind of overview of how do you kind of get into this, right? And now the end result is you start using some of these movements, like a third, moving down to a fourth,
But you're doing that to Autumn Leaves right
Now I'm doing it to Autumn Leaves,
See,
yep, and you can hear the harmony.
I hear the melody.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, but you hear the melody in your head, but here
See-
is intervals. That's what's the cool part I like.
And you can choose any. So you're expanding those as you.
Yeah, so a great place to start for something like that. I wanted to show you guys just one other exercise, but this kind of got us into this, which is fine.
No, that's not.
It's a third. It's a minor third, right? The chord is C minor 7.
Yeah.
Okay. C and E flat. That's that's bread and butter right there. That's the tonic in the 3rd degree, right?
Right.
So if you start there now, that's kind of getting me to the whole point of this, which is the guitar is not the piano. It will never be. So what you have to do is you have to find out ways to create the illusion of harmony. And that's kind of what counterpoint to me represents on the guitar. I can play 9 voids, I can get all these colors, you keep talking about color, right? I can get all these colors without having to play these big voicings, right? Because if you hear 9 different notes in the course of that grid, in that bar, right? That's all the color that's been splashed on that bar. It doesn't matter if you splashed it all on at one time, or if you kind of slowly crept your way through it, that color is still being represented. So that kind of gets me just to one more thing that I do want to talk about real quick. We had this scale. So how do you kind of get the fluidity to be able to do some of this stuff, okay? Good old friend here. Everyone's familiar with it.
Metronome.
Gotta love it,
Yeah.
So this is real slow, man. Like I put my metronome at 15.
15.
Wow.
Okay, and so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna feel groupings of 4 against this. It'll be hard with that refrigerator.
What are we trying to? What are we subdividing?
We're trying to hear this
You
in the
hear
4.
the 4 beats within that beat.
Wow. And it means you're at like 16 or something like that, and then you just know that you're divided by
Yeah, right.
by 16 notes,
Right.
Wow, that's brutal. That's like Ray Charles brutal.
Well, listen to it.
Yeah.
Hitting it every time. Now, how am I doing that?
I have no idea.
Okay, one is I practice this a lot. Okay. Now the other thing though is why do you do this? Okay, like I said, you have to be responsible for the time now, and you're not going to be able to improvise using thirds if you can't play thirds and quarter notes.
Yeah.
If you can't
Yeah.
go 1, if you can't just play a melody in thirds, know, there's no way you're gonna be able to improvise when the heat of the moment comes. Like it's time to improvise some counterpoint or something, or use some two-note stuff. It's gonna be, you're gonna rely on licks or stuff that you got worked out. Okay, and
But that's not where you're at.
that's not where I'm at. No, what I'm talking about is I'm talking about creating something. You know, and the way you do that is it's just like anything, right? You learn the materials. So what I do with this is I'll take it through and I practice, and this can happen, this concept goes for any melodic material, practicing with the pick, anything. It's just a subdivision exercise. So you start with this slow metronome on four subdivisions, right? Now I'm gonna move it to 5. So now there's gonna be 5, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So,
Alright, so when you're doing that, what's in your mind? I mean,
It's a great question.
Are you just counting quarters and trying to keep it spaced,
So
or are
there's-
you subdividing that?
I'm not subdividing, I'm thinking about it in a big beat of 5. Okay, and the reason why I'm doing that is because a lot of the music that I play, kind of more modern contemporary stuff, sometimes it's like this really long rhythmic phrase, but there's a big beat kind of thing that's overlying the whole thing.
Right.
So maybe you have like this thing in 21, but it's really just a big 7, you know? So there's like different ways to think about these type of things, but basically the reason why I'm doing that is because if I can feel those big spaces like that really strong within myself, when I go play with a drummer or something, like, I'm not gonna get pushed around.
So that kind of
That
reminds.
is. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
So there's a drummer named Bernard Purdy.
Oh yeah, actually I have a picture with Bernard Purdy. I met him in the Mojo Blues Club in Copenhagen one time, completely randomly.
So there's a video of him explaining how he subdivides the time with the Purdy shuffle.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is, a very, it's basically, he has all these different subdivisions happening at once, and how he has, maybe one point he's in quarters, and then another limb he's thinking triplets, and how he all puts this together. So it's that whole concept, reminds me of the whole concept, how you have the big beat, but he's got all these different subdivisions going on in his brain and with his limbs at the
Well,
same
and
time.
so what this exercise progresses to is that. So basically what it starts off is you feel the quarter notes, right? And then you feel a group of 5, then you feel 6. Okay, now 6 could be felt, so one thing to talk about real quick with this is the system of 2 and 3s. Is everybody familiar with this? Okay, you can
Explain
break
it.
everything down into 2s and 3s, okay? All rhythmic possibilities get broken down into 2s and 3s, short and long, okay? So like 5, there's two options, right? 2 and 3, or 3 and 2. Taka takita or takita taka.
Right, like when I played 7, apple, apple, gallop. And then
Okay,
apple,
but there's 3 7s, right? There's takita taka takita. Or sorry, it's a taka takita taka, right? Which is
Right.
the third is the middle, ta 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 ta, and ta 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 ta. And then you can build longer ones, right? Maybe you have a palindrome that's 14, you know?
Oh,
Ta
wow.
ta 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 ta.
You got.
So what this system does though is if you practice this, I practice this up to 21 every day. Okay, and so when you get to 21, right, you have 7 quarter notes, that big thing of 7, right? So I could be thinking about that in terms of triplets, right? So like, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm not going to be able to play counterpoint at this speed, I'm telling you that, but I'll play a scale real quick just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, to move it fast.
Where are your accents?
Accents accents are on the 1.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just,
Yep.
sometimes I think Romanian music, it's
Okay.
always on the 3.
Yeah, yeah. And so the thing is so what
Yeah.
you can do with all these, you know, if you're practicing thirds, triple it, triple it, triple it. So it's a 6. But I can execute these thirds in any of those rhythmic patterns. Like
Right.
I say, you know, let's say 15. Okay, 15. Like somebody says, oh, we're gonna play 15. That's hard, right? Maybe, you know. Well, it is hard. Thinking about it in groups of 5, right? I'm thinking big 5 triplets. Da 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 da. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you know you can practice. These are just things you can practice too. Like some of it, you know.
Sure.
You can practice your foot, you know. So I'm playing a grouping of 7 notes. It's gonna take 7 bars for it to loop around. Okay, I'm just messing with you guys. But so the idea here is that these things, to kind of wrap it up here. When
I
you
still
practice,
have questions though.
Yeah.
I hate to
no,
just
it's good.
wrap it up.
But
Okay.
we're gonna have questions. Go
All
ahead.
right, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
No, okay, so if we're getting into melodic scales, melodic mode, harmonic minor, whole tone, are we getting into the bitonal or no?
We're not gonna make it there today.
Oh, we're not? Okay, never mind.
Okay, but you know, just to give you a little.
Just, I thought it was in that realm.
Okay, so now bitonal, real quick. What the heck does that mean?
I have no
I
idea.
have no idea, that's why I'm asking.
Okay, let's talk about it real quick. Cool. I told you guys was gonna go over. We're way over. Okay.
It's okay, we're-
Yeah, we're guitar geeks. We're just nerds now. Okay, so bitonality, bitonal. That means there's two tonalities happening simultaneously. Okay. Now, for our immediate instinct as a guitarist is to say, oh crap. Now on the piano, that's really easy. You can play a C chord in one hand and a D chord in one hand, right? And you just go ding 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 ding. It makes sense. Now on the guitar, that's not so easy, but what we can do is use parallel motion to create bitonality. So what I can do is, instead of adjusting, you know, if I have the C major scale here, this is getting totally into some bar talk stuff too. I'm gonna take the tetrachord, the first 5 notes of the C major scale.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna harmonize all of them with tritones.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, that is, okay.
The tritone away, right? It's a
Right.
G flat major. Versus C major. At the same time. Okay, once again, ear training, being able to hear.
Yeah.
You know, really being able to hear. Like really hear G flat against that C. It's
Yeah.
not easy, right? But and then the same thing. I could be playing a G major on top. Pretty harmonious. Fifths. Right? I can play A flat, minor 6. Oh,
Oh, okay. That's, okay, I get it now. So, just to revert back, these are tools you use for composition, you said, but also these are tools, it sounds to me you can use these tools to, a lot for just jamming with friends, like.
well, for just free improvisation, yeah, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
great thing. For composition, it's great. Now, for specific genres, every genre kind of has their own, like,
Right.
vernacular in which they use these. Like soul music, you know. A lot of thirds, right? The fourths and thirds going together. It's kind of characteristic of that sound, right? The blues, we got minor third, right? That's huge in the blues. Minor third. You know, it's like it's a big part of it, okay?
Yeah.
That's another one. It's a major third, but the thirds, right? Now you don't really hear a lot of those kind of more exotic like a major 7th interval. I mean, you can hear it in monk's music or something.
Sure.
But you're not going to hear that in like a lot of stuff. But so each genre kind of has like the intervallic language that it uses, you know. So like the bitonality thing, you're not really, you know, that's something more like these are kind of like I kind of put these. These could also be in like the advanced you know, there's like advanced stuff, but you know, it just has like in terms of like maybe I'll play something here to kind of put this all together, like so because part of it is technical preparation, right? Part of it is theoretical preparation, so like learning the single string, you know, learning the notes up and down the string, learning the intervals, and then learning how those intervals can morph and move into other intervals, right? You know, using various techniques, oblique, similar, parallel. Like parallel, like as we were talking about, isn't going to happen in a diatonic tonal system like C major or something. I mean, there's little instances of it, like parallel could be like taking all the minor thirds, right? It's kind of a cool idea.
Just kind of a diminished sort of thing.
Well, it's all in the C major scale. I'm just taking the minor thirds. I'm just looking for where all the minor thirds
Oh,
are
okay.
to make parallel motion in that scale, okay?
Okay.
But then, like I was saying, like harmonic materials, yeah, there's a lot of harmonic materials, you know, but I recommend the major scale. Like if you don't feel like I've got my major scale dialed in, like that's a great place to start, you know, because you can go to a lot of other places with that, like I was saying.
Yeah,
Can you explain contrary, counterpoint in 3 sentences or less?
Yeah, I can do it in one. Two voices moving against each other in opposite motion. So contrary is always going to be two voices. They're constantly like moving either into each other or away from each other, expanding or contracting.
Think of them as atoms. Like their two voices are the atoms. They're gonna bounce or they're gonna come.
Yeah, and maybe like I said, I'll just play something
Yeah,
real
play,
quick.
yeah.
Since I've been talking a lot of crap this whole time, I probably need to at least back some of it up. So anyways, you know, that rhythm thing that I was talking about, what that does is it gives you tools to improvise in various rhythms, you know, because what you do is you practice your material in 5/4, all this stuff. All these time signatures are happening all the time in music, okay? I don't want to like get people too wrapped up in this, but it's worth kind of noting. It's 4/4, the grid is 4/4, right? But like, I could play 3/8 on top of that. Why not, you know? Voices now, I'm taking the eighth notes and I'm grouping them into notes of 3 dotted quarter notes. Okay, so all these different rhythmic possibilities, they all can happen in all the other time. They're all related, all the grids. Okay, all the grids can be put together. Like you could play 5/4 and 4/4. It's just you're gonna bleed over into the second beat of 4/4, right? If I play da 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 da, that last note is actually on the 1 of the next beat, right? Doesn't mean you can't use this material. So the thing what that does is it starts getting you into phrasing in different rhythmic things than the common, I'm getting to this bar, and now I'm at this bar, let me start on the 1 here, you know? It's all these exercises we've been talking about are ways to free up your phrasing by being sure of where you're at, you know? So those clapping exercises and stuff I talked about, those are all great, and then you can put that on the guitar, you know? Like, can I play, you know? You know, that's the offbeats of the eighth notes, right? I'm just playing a major scale, you know, but everything I practice always has some rhythmic component to it. So whether I'm practicing chords or counterpoint, you know, just those little exercises with the thirds we were talking about, you know, it's always with some rhythmic component in mind, okay? Just because I don't, even when I'm playing free, I still want to have a rhythmic conception, right? And so that kind of just leaves you with, as Dizzy Gillespie said, think of a rhythm and put notes to it. Okay, think of a rhythm and put notes to it. That's the essence of jazz. So I'm gonna finish with this and then I'll let you guys get going. school with Nelly.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a preface, yeah.
With all the monk voicings.
Wow.
The very
Yeah.
specific voicings
Well
that
done.
he used.
Yeah.
And so that's just kind of to let you guys know, you know, like, don't ever like, you know, maybe you can't do all that crazy voicing stuff I just did, but piano, it's a good resource for guitarists. You know, there's so much harmonic material going on there, and there's such a lineage on the instrument that to not look at, you know, people who used it, because the piano is the only other reference we have for a polyphonic instrument in music, right? Really, I mean,
It's true.
other than the bass, I guess, you know, but like, so just kind of like be aware of those things, and, you know, if you guys have any questions or anything, you know, we can chat after, you know, the session is over here, but,
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
The open